My dear friends, something is shifting in the unseen realm, and the chosen ones can feel it stirring even before it manifests. You have sensed it quietly, perhaps while looking in the mirror, perhaps while praying in silence, perhaps while wondering why certain signs keep repeating around you. God is speaking in subtle ways before He moves in visible ways. And right now, He is declaring that something divine is about to happen to your hair, not merely as a physical change, but as a sign, a signal, and a testimony of what He is doing in your life. God has always used the visible to reveal the invisible. When He moves in the Spirit, the body eventually follows. When He releases favor, it does not remain hidden. For the chosen ones, even the smallest details of life become instruments of divine expression. Your hair, which you may have overlooked or even struggled with, is about to reflect a deeper work of restoration, honor, and renewal. This is not about vanity. This is about identity. God is restoring how you see yourself and how the world perceives the mark He has placed upon you. There are seasons when God works internally, unseen, silently strengthening faith, refining character, and teaching endurance. But there are also seasons when He allows outward signs to follow inward transformation. Many of you have walked through seasons of loss, stress, rejection, and spiritual warfare that took a toll even on your physical being. Sleepless nights, heavy burdens, emotional strain, and silent tears have affected you more than you admit. God saw every moment. He recorded every sigh. And now He is declaring that the season of visible restoration has arrived. When God restores, He does not restore partially. He restores with purpose. He restores with testimony. He restores in ways that make people ask questions they cannot answer without acknowledging His hand. Your hair is symbolic of strength, covering, dignity, and renewal. God is not just improving something external. He is reminding you who you are. He is undoing what stress tried to steal, what fear attempted to weaken, and what the enemy hoped would diminish your confidence. Some of you have prayed silently, not even daring to speak certain desires aloud, believing they were too small or too insignificant for God's attention. But God is attentive to every detail of your life. He is not only concerned with your destiny, He is concerned with your daily well-being. He is not only guiding your future, He is healing the effects of your past. What He is about to do will remind you that nothing about you is forgotten. There are chosen ones listening who felt overlooked, who felt as though life drained the vitality from them, who felt like the reflection staring back no longer matched the fire within. God is aligning the outer with the inner once again. As your faith rises, as your hope strengthens, as your peace returns, your body responds. Restoration flows where peace is restored. Renewal manifests where faith is activated. God is not making this change quietly. He is allowing it to be noticeable because He wants to confront the lie that you are worn down, aging prematurely, or losing your strength. You are not declining, you are being renewed. You are not fading, you are being refined. You are not losing favor, you are stepping into a season where favor becomes visible again. Some will notice and say it is coincidence. Some will say it is natural, but you will know better. You will know that this is God reminding you that you are under His care. That even after storms, even after battles, even after long waiting seasons, He knows how to restore what life tried to strip away. God is saying, look again, I am not finished with you. This divine movement is connected to confidence. Many chosen ones struggle quietly with self-doubt. even while carrying great spiritual authority. God is restoring your confidence without arrogance, your strength without pride, and your beauty without insecurity. When you walk in confidence rooted in God, it shifts how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you pray, and how you step into purpose. Do not underestimate how God uses the small to prepare you for the great. If He is restoring your appearance, He is also preparing you for visibility. If He is renewing your strength, He is also positioning you for responsibility. If He is rebuilding your confidence, He is also preparing you for influence. God never restores without intention. Some of you have been hidden for a season, hidden to heal, hidden to grow, hidden to be protected from eyes that could not understand your process. But the hidden season is ending. God is allowing the signs of renewal to appear because He is transitioning you from preparation to presentation. Not for pride, but for purpose. Not for attention, but for assignment. This is why the shift feels sudden. God often works quietly until the moment of revelation arrives. And when it does, it feels rapid, undeniable, and surprising even to you. One day you wake up and realize something has changed. Strength has returned. Peace has deepened. Confidence has awakened. And even your physical appearance begins to reflect the renewal happening within. Chosen ones, this is not random. God does not waste seasons. He does not allow suffering without redemption. He does not permit loss without restoration. What you endured was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to prepare you for the authority you are stepping into now. As God restores, guard your mind. Do not speak negatively about what He is rebuilding. Do not doubt the process. Do not rush the timing. Allow Him to complete the work fully. Gratitude accelerates restoration. Faith sustains it. Peace protects it. Some of you are being reminded that you are not defined by what you went through. You are defined by the God who brought you through it. The weariness you once carried is lifting. The heaviness you felt is dissolving. The signs of struggle are being replaced with signs of renewal. This is a season where God is reminding you that you are still chosen, still favored, still covered. Even if life tried to convince you otherwise, God's hand has never left you. His presence has never withdrawn. His purpose has never changed. Let this be a moment where you stand a little taller, pray with a little more confidence, and believe with a little more boldness. God is aligning you from the inside out. What begins as restoration becomes testimony. What starts as renewal becomes authority. What feels personal becomes purposeful. Do not compare your process to others. God's work in you is unique, intentional, and perfectly timed. Celebrate quietly if you must, but recognize boldly what God is doing. He is marking you for a new season, and even the smallest signs are reminders that His promises are alive. You are not imagining this shift. You are not being dramatic. You are discerning correctly. God is moving. God is restoring. God is reminding you that you are still under His watchful care. This is not the end of your story. It is a visible sign that a new chapter has begun, and everything connected to you is aligning with the favor, strength, and renewal God has already declared over your life. Understand this deeply. When God begins to restore what was affected by pressure, time, and unseen battles, He is making a declaration not only to you, but to the unseen forces that watched you endure. There are restorations that are private, and there are restorations, are visible. God chooses visibility when He wants to silence doubt, cancel shame, and remind you that endurance never goes unrewarded. What is happening now is not cosmetic, it is covenantal. It is a reminder that you are still under divine covering. God knows how seasons have marked you. He knows how stress etched lines of worry into your thoughts, how anxiety tightened its grip, how disappointment whispered lies about decline and limitation. Yet God is the one who reverses what time attempts to steal. When He restores, He does so in a way that reestablishes dignity. He is not merely repairing damage, He is reinstating honor. He is reminding you that your life has not been reduced by what you survived. There is a spiritual principle at work that many overlook. When inner peace is restored, the body responds. When faith is revived, strength follows. When hope is renewed, vitality returns. God designed the human being as a unified creation, not fragmented. What touches the spirit eventually influences the visible. That is why this moment matters. God is aligning your inner conviction with your outer testimony. Some of you were told directly or indirectly that decline was inevitable, that loss was permanent, that what faded could never return. But God does not operate by human conclusions. He operates by divine authority. When He speaks restoration, He bypasses limitations, overrides assumptions, and interrupts patterns. He restores not because something is deserved, but because His word is final. There is also a lesson in patience here. God is teaching you to trust His timing without anxiety. Restoration that is rushed does not last. Restoration that is surrendered endures. As you remain grounded, calm, and grateful, the process stabilizes. God is not testing your faith to see if you will believe. He is strengthening your faith so you will remain steady when the visible change draws attention. Do not underestimate the power of being calm in a season of change. When God restores quietly, it confuses the enemy. When He restores steadily, it builds confidence without arrogance. You are learning how to walk in favor without announcing it, how to carry blessing without flaunting it, how to be renewed without becoming distracted by appearances. This season is also about alignment. God is aligning your habits, your thoughts, your rest, and your self-perception with the future He has prepared. Some of you are sleeping better. Some of you are breathing deeper. Some of you feel lighter, even without knowing why. These are not coincidences. These are signs that your nervous system is responding to peace, and peace is responding to trust in God. God is also healing identity wounds. There were moments when you looked at yourself and questioned whether you were still strong, still relevant, still capable. Those questions did not come from truth, they came from exhaustion. God is now answering those silent doubts with evidence. He is restoring what makes you recognize yourself again. Chosen ones understand that God often uses what people see to confirm what you already know. You know you are chosen. You know you are protected. You know you are called. But God allows certain outward signs so that your confidence is reinforced, not shaken. This is not about approval from others. It is about assurance within yourself. There is also preparation happening beneath the surface. God does not renew strength without purpose. He does not restore vitality without assignment. There are responsibilities ahead that require endurance, clarity, and presence. God is preparing you to show up fully, not drained, not doubting, not diminished. Some of you are entering spaces where your presence will matter more than your words, where how you carry you. For self will speak before you do. God is rebuilding that quiet authority, that calm confidence, that grounded strength that cannot be taught, only cultivated through surrender and trust. Do not revisit old narratives. Do not speak as though you are still in survival mode. Your language must match your season. Speak with gratitude. Move with intention. Rest without guilt. God is restoring your capacity to receive without fear of loss. There is also a reminder here about stewardship. When God restores, honor the gift. Care for yourself with wisdom, not obsession. With balance, not anxiety. With gratitude, not fear. Everything God gives flourishes when it is respected, not stressed over. This is a season where God is also correcting how you see time. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not catching up. You are exactly where you need to be. Restoration does not mean returning to the past. It means stepping into the future with renewed strength. Some of you needed this sign because you were close to believing the lie that the best was behind you. God is correcting that belief gently but firmly. He is saying, you are just beginning to see what I preserved you for. What looks like renewal is actually preparation. As this process continues, guard your peace fiercely. Do not allow comparison to steal your joy. Do not allow skepticism to dilute your gratitude. God is personal. What He does for you is tailored to you. Trust that He knows exactly how to reach you. You are learning to receive without explanation, to accept without justification, to believe without needing validation. That is maturity. That is faith refined. That is confidence rooted in God alone. Let this season strengthen your prayer life, not distract from it. Let restoration draw you closer, not make you complacent. Gratitude keeps the channel open. Humility keeps the blessing stable. What God is doing now is subtle but significant. It is a reminder that He sees you as whole, not broken, renewed, not depleted, chosen, not forgotten. And as this work continues, you will realize that this visible sign was only the beginning of a deeper alignment, a stronger faith, and a renewed authority that flows naturally from a life anchored in God. There is also a deeper spiritual law unfolding here, one that speaks to divine order and restoration of authority. In ancient understanding, strength was never separated from purpose. When God renews strength, it is because something ahead requires stamina, clarity, and presence. You are not being restored for comfort alone. You are being restored for calling. God is ensuring that when the moment comes, you will not step forward depleted, uncertain, or doubting your worth. You will step forward whole. Many chosen ones underestimate how long-term pressure affects the body. Carrying responsibility without recognition, bearing burdens without relief, and fighting battles without applause or leave marks. God allowed you to endure, but He never intended you to remain marked by struggle. Now He is removing the residue of survival and replacing it with the evidence of stability. What you see changing is the echo of peace returning to its rightful place. God is also correcting how you interpret signs. For too long you learned to expect decline, to brace for loss, to prepare for disappointment. That mindset was formed in survival seasons, not promised seasons. God is retraining your expectations. He is teaching you to recognize blessing without suspicion, restoration without fear, and progress without anxiety. This is a relearning process, and it requires trust. Some of you are realizing that what drained you most was not effort, but uncertainty, not labor, but lack of assurance. God is now giving you reassurance through tangible signs. He is anchoring your faith in consistency rather than struggle. This is why the restoration feels steady, not sudden. It is meant to last. Understand this, God does not restore to impress others. He restores to stabilize you. When you are stable, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your future shifts. God is aligning the small details of your life so that larger doors can open without resistance. There is also an invitation here to release old grief. Some of you are still carrying disappointment from years that demanded more than they gave. God is saying that season has expired. The weight you carried no longer serves you. Restoration is easier when you let go of the narrative that you were robbed. You were refined, not ruined. God is also restoring joy in subtle ways. Laughter feels easier. Smiles feel natural again. There is less effort in being present. These are signs of emotional healing, not coincidence. When joy returns, vitality follows. God designed joy as strength, not as luxury. Chosen ones, pay attention to your inner dialogue. God is aligning it with truth. Where there was criticism, there is compassion. Where there was fear, there is calm. Where there was doubt, there is assurance. As your inner voice changes, your outer life responds. This is divine order reestablishing itself. There is also a call to discipline in this season. Restoration must be protected. Guard your rest. Guard your thoughts. Guard your peace. Not everything deserves your energy anymore. God is teaching you boundaries as a form of worship. When you honor what He is restoring, it remains strong. Some of you are stepping into environments that once intimidated you. This time, you will enter differently. Not striving to prove yourself, not shrinking to be accepted, but standing calmly in who God has shaped you to be. Authority does not announce itself. It's set. Tells into the room quietly and confidently. God is also reminding you that renewal does not erase memory, but it redeems it. You will remember where you came from, but it will no longer define how you see yourself. Memory will inform gratitude, not identity. Strength will be rooted in awareness, not fear. This season is teaching you how to receive goodness without guilt, to accept ease without questioning it, to trust that peace is not laziness and rest is not weakness. God designed rest as preparation, not escape. As you rest, your strength compounds. There are unseen witnesses to this restoration, forces that expected you to remain worn, hesitant, and uncertain are watching you rise quietly. God does not need you to announce victory. Your consistency will speak. Your steadiness will testify. Your renewal will silence doubt without confrontation. Let your gratitude remain sincere and your humility remain intact. God honors those who recognize the source. Every sign of renewal is an invitation to deeper trust, not distraction. Keep your focus anchored. Keep your heart aligned. Keep your spirit receptive. What is unfolding now is layered. What you notice first is only the surface. Beneath it, God is reinforcing foundations, strengthening resolve, and sharpening discernment. This is preparation that cannot be rushed, and restoration that cannot be reversed. You are not returning to who you were. You are becoming who you were meant to be, with clarity, with strength, with peace, with assurance. And as this process continues, you will find that what once felt fragile is now resilient. What once felt uncertain is now stable. And what once felt heavy is now carried with grace as God continues His work steadily, intentionally, and faithfully. There is another dimension unfolding that many overlook, and it speaks to divine distinction. God does not restore everyone in the same way or at the same time. When He marks chosen ones, He does so with intention. What is happening to you carries a signature. It is God distinguishing you quietly, not to elevate ego, but to affirm calling. Distinction does not need permission. It flows from divine selection. God is teaching you to recognize His touch without seeking explanation. Some blessings are meant to be understood only by the one receiving them. If everyone could explain it, it would lose its sacredness. God is cultivating discernment in you, so you learn when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence in this season is not weakness, it is wisdom. There are moments when God restores not to answer questions, but to end them. To end the wondering, the doubting, the internal negotiations. He restores to say, trust me now. And when trust is established, momentum follows. This is why the restoration feels steady and undeniable. God is anchoring you before accelerating you. Pay attention to how your posture is changing. You are not shrinking anymore. You are not bracing for impact. You are standing with a quiet confidence that did not come from affirmation, but from alignment. God is recalibrating how you carry yourself in the world. This is preparation for rooms that require presence, not performance. God is also restoring spiritual authority that was dulled by exhaustion. Authority does not shout, it resonates. When you are aligned with God, your words carry weight without force. Your presence carries peace without effort. This is the result of restoration that reaches deeper than appearances. There is also healing happening in how you perceive value. You are learning that worth is not earned through suffering, and rest does not require justification. God is dismantling the belief that struggle is proof of faith. Faith is trust, not strain. And trust produces peace, which produces strength. Some of you were faithful even when nothing seemed to change. That faith did not go unnoticed. God does not reward noise. He honors consistency. What you see now is delayed confirmation, not delayed response. The answer was always moving toward you, even when you could not see it. God is also restoring clarity. Decisions feel easier. Discernment feels sharper. Confusion is lifting. This clarity is connected to peace. When the mind is no longer crowded with fear, it becomes receptive to wisdom. God is making space within you for direction. This season requires you to let go of the need to control outcomes. Restoration flourishes where surrender is present. God is inviting you to trust His process without micromanaging it. What He builds without your anxiety will stand longer than what you force through worry. There is also a lesson in gratitude without attachment. Appreciate what God is doing without becoming dependent on the sign. The sign points to Him, not to itself. When your focus remains on God, the blessing remains balanced. You are also being trained to carry renewal responsibly. Influence is increasing, even if subtly. People notice calm, they notice confidence, they notice peace. God is preparing you to model what alignment looks like without explanation. Some of you are stepping out of cycles that lasted longer than they should have. God allowed the delay to deepen character, not to deny promise. Now the cycle is closing, and renewal is the confirmation. Closure does not always come with announcement. Sometimes it comes with peace. As this work continues, remain attentive to God's voice. He often speaks through inner assurance rather than external noise. Learn to trust that stillness. That stillness is not emptiness, it is alignment. You are not becoming someone else. You are returning to yourself, refined, strengthened, and anchored. O is restoring what was always meant to be yours, not as a reward for perfection, but as a response to faithfulness. What unfolds next will require courage, not fear. Presence, not performance. Trust, not control. And as God continues this work, you will realize that this restoration was not about one visible change, but about a complete realignment of strength, identity, and purpose under His sovereign care. There is a refining awareness awakening within you, and it is teaching you to discern between effort and alignment. For too long, many chosen ones equated faith with strain, obedience with exhaustion, and devotion with depletion. God is correcting that misunderstanding now. When you are aligned, effort becomes efficient. When you are aligned, strength renews instead of drains. What you are experiencing is God restoring harmony between obedience and ease. God is also recalibrating how you measure progress. You no longer judge growth by speed or noise, but by stability and peace. This is maturity. This is discernment. When God moves you into a higher level of trust, He removes the need for constant reassurance. You begin to know rather than hope. You begin to rest rather than strive. And from that rest, strength quietly multiplies. Some of you are noticing that old insecurities are losing their voice. Thoughts that once demanded attention now pass without power. This is not because you fought them harder, but because God has strengthened your foundation. When the foundation is secure, storms do not negotiate, they pass. God is building you in a way that does not require constant defense. There is also restoration happening in how you relate to time. You are no longer rushing to prove, rushing to arrive, rushing to validate your worth. God is teaching you divine pacing. When you move at His pace, you arrive whole, not fragmented. This pacing protects what He eyes, restoring and ensures longevity. God is also shifting how you handle visibility. Where attention once felt overwhelming, it now feels neutral. Where being seen once stirred anxiety, it now carries responsibility without fear. God is preparing you to be visible without being consumed by visibility. This is a rare balance, and it comes only through trust in Him. Some of you endured seasons where you felt invisible, where your effort went unnoticed, where your faith felt unacknowledged. That invisibility was protection. God was shaping you away from distraction. Now, as restoration becomes evident, you will notice that you are not distracted by attention the way you once were. This is evidence of inner stability. God is also restoring reverence within you, a deeper awareness of His presence, not driven by fear, but by honor. This reverence anchors you. It keeps you grounded even as things improve. It reminds you that every good thing flows from alignment, not entitlement. Pay attention to the way your desires are changing. You are no longer drawn to what drains you. You are no longer entertained by chaos. You are no longer stimulated by disorder. God is refining your appetite. What nourishes you now is peace, clarity, and purpose. This shift protects the restoration from decay. There is also healing happening in how you respond to pressure. Pressure no longer collapses you, it clarifies you. God is strengthening your resilience without hardening your heart. You remain sensitive but not fragile, aware but not overwhelmed. This balance is divine craftsmanship. Some of you are recognizing that restoration also includes permission to enjoy life again, to breathe without guilt, to smile without suspicion, to experience ease without waiting for loss. God is teaching you that joy does not invite punishment. It reflects trust. When you trust God, you allow yourself to live fully. God is also restoring confidence in your discernment. You trust your judgment again because it is aligned with His guidance. You no longer second guess every decision. You listen, you respond, and you move forward calmly. This confidence is quiet but firm, rooted in alignment rather than impulse. There is a purification of motive happening. You no longer seek validation through sacrifice. You no longer equate burnout with faithfulness. God is teaching you that obedience flows best from wholeness. When you are whole, your service is sustainable. As this process continues, You will notice that what once felt fragile now feels grounded. What once required constant attention now sustains itself naturally. This is the sign of divine order being restored. God does not merely repair, He reestablishes structure. You are also learning how to remain grateful without clinging, appreciation without fear, trust without control. This emotional balance is part of the restoration. It allows blessings to remain blessings, not burdens. God is refining your awareness of His presence in everyday moments, not only in prayer, but in rest, not only in struggle, but in peace. This awareness deepens intimacy and stabilizes faith. You are no longer seeking signs desperately. You are recognizing God consistently. What is unfolding is progressive. Each layer supports the next. Each shift prepares you for what follows. God is not rushing this process because it is meant to last. What He builds now will support future responsibilities without collapse. And as this restoration continues, you will find yourself moving with greater assurance, speaking with greater clarity, and living with a steadiness that does not fluctuate with circumstance, because your strength is no longer borrowed from conditions, but anchored firmly in God. This is the moment where understanding settles into a conviction. God has been speaking through process, through peace, through subtle restoration, and now through clarity. What began as quiet renewal has become undeniable alignment. You are no longer guessing whether God is involved. You are recognizing how thoroughly He has been present all along. Every detail, every shift, every sign has carried intention. Nothing was random. Nothing was delayed. Nothing was wasted. God has proven that restoration is not about returning you to who you were, but about revealing who you were always meant to be. Stronger without hardness, confident without pride, visible without insecurity, rooted without fear. What He has restored is not fragile, because it is built on truth, not emotion. It is sustained by peace, not effort. You are stepping forward with a steadiness that cannot be shaken by opinion, comparison, or uncertainty. God has reestablished your sense of self under His authority, not under circumstance. You are no longer reacting to life, you are responding from alignment. That is strength. That is maturity. That is divine order restored. Let what God has done remind you of who holds your future. Let every sign of renewal anchor your trust deeper, not in what you see, but in the one who orchestrates what unfolds. Walk forward without haste, stand without fear, receive without suspicion. God is faithful in completion, and what He has begun in you continues with purpose, power, and precision. My dear friends, your greatest enemy is not outside you. It is not people. It is not circumstances, and it is not the world. Your greatest enemy is the voice that whispers inside your mind when no one else is speaking. That voice that tells you you are weak, that you will fail again, that nothing will ever change, that you are forgotten, delayed, or disqualified. That voice did not come from God. And until you learn how to silence it, confront it, and replace it, you will keep fighting battles you were never meant to lose. Today, God wants to break the power of negative thoughts over your life. Negative thoughts are not harmless, they are seeds. Every thought you allow to stay long enough will eventually grow roots in your heart, shape your words, influence your actions, and decide your future. Long before a person fails outwardly, they fail inwardly. Long before defeat shows up in life, it is accepted in the mind. This is why God places such importance on the inner life, because He knows that transformation does not begin with circumstances changing, but with thinking changing. When your thinking aligns with God, your life will eventually follow. Many people pray for blessings while entertaining thoughts that block them. They ask God for peace while feeding anxiety. They ask God for abundance while rehearsing fear and lack. They ask God for victory while agreeing with defeat. God is not withholding answers, but He will not partner with thoughts that oppose His truth. Negative thoughts are like closed doors. They limit what God can release into your life. The moment you change what you agree with in your mind, you change what you experience in your reality. Understand this deeply. Not every thought that enters your mind belongs there. The mind is a battlefield, and thoughts come like visitors. Some are sent to help you, others are sent to weaken you. Just because a thought arrives does not mean it has authority. You are not required to host every thought that knocks. God has given you the power to examine, challenge, and reject anything that contradicts His promises. The problem is not that negative thoughts come. The problem is that people accept them without resistance. There are thoughts that sound logical, reasonable, and even convincing, but they are still destructive. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. Doubt often disguises itself as realism. Hopelessness often disguises itself as acceptance. But God never speaks in ways that drain your strength, diminish your worth, or steal your expectation. God's voice brings light, clarity, courage, and direction, even when He corrects you. Negative thoughts, on the other hand, always leave you feeling smaller, weaker, and stuck. If you want to remove negative thoughts, you must first stop identifying with them. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. Many people say, "This is just how I am," but what they really mean is, "This is how I have been thinking." God did not create you to be controlled by patterns of fear, worry, or self-condemnation. He created you with authority over your inner world. When you realize this, something powerful shifts. You stop being a victim of your mind and become a steward of it. Negative thoughts often enter during moments of weakness, when you are tired, disappointed, or waiting. Waiting seasons are especially dangerous because silence creates space for imagination, and imagination without faith often drifts toward fear. This is why God calls His people to remain watchful in their thinking. What you meditate on in silence determines whether you rise in strength or sink in discouragement. Waiting is not passive, it is active alignment with God's truth. One of the strongest ways negative thoughts gain power is through repetition. The same lie repeated often enough begins to feel true. I always fail. Nothing ever works for me. Others are blessed, but I am not. These are not facts. They are agreements. And every agreement has consequences. God honors truth, but He does not endorse lies you believe about yourself. The moment you challenge a lie with God's truth, its power begins to weaken. Lies survive in silence, but they collapse under light. You must understand that God's truth is not based on your past, your emotions, or your current condition. God's truth is eternal. Negative thoughts always point backward or trap you in the present. God's thoughts always point forward. Fear reminds you of what went wrong. Faith reminds you of who God is. Despair focuses on what you lack. Trust focuses on what God supplies. If a thought pulls you away from trust, hope, and confidence in God, it is not a thought you should keep. Another reason negative thoughts stay is because people confuse humility with self-neglect. They think rejecting negative thoughts means being arrogant or unrealistic. But honoring what God says about you is not pride, it is obedience. When you constantly degrade yourself in your thoughts, you are not being humble. You are contradicting the one who created you. God did not form you to live under a cloud of constant self-doubt. He formed you to walk with dignity, purpose, and confidence rooted in Him. Negative thoughts also thrive when you isolate yourself. When thoughts remain unspoken, they grow louder. God designed us in a way that truth is reinforced through connection. Isolation makes lies sound convincing. But when truth enters through prayer, reflection, or righteous counsel, the grip of negativity loosens. God often brings clarity not by changing the situation immediately, but by changing the internal narrative you have been telling yourself. You must learn to replace, not just remove. An empty mind does not stay empty. If you simply try to stop thinking negatively without filling your mind with God's truth, the same patterns will return stronger. God's way is always replacement. Replace fear with trust. Replace worry with surrender. Replace self-condemnation with mercy. Replace hopelessness with expectation. When God's truth occupies your inner space, negativity has no room to remain. Daily focus matters more than occasional inspiration. One powerful moment cannot undo years of unchecked thinking unless it leads to consistent discipline. God works through alignment over time. What you repeatedly give your attention to becomes your default mindset. This is why God calls you to be intentional with your inner life. Guarding your thoughts is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice of choosing truth over impulse. Negative thoughts often speak in absolutes, always, never, everyone, no one. God's voice is precise, purposeful, and hopeful. Learn to listen carefully. Ask yourself, does this thought lead me closer to God or further away from Him? Does it strengthen my trust or weaken it? Does it inspire action rooted in faith or paralysis rooted in fear? These questions expose the nature of the thoughts you are entertaining. When you align your thinking with God, you begin to experience peace even before circumstances change. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of trust. Negative thoughts demand evidence before peace arrives. God's truth produces peace before evidence appears. This is where faith becomes active. Not denying reality, but declaring that reality does not have the final word. Your mind will never be neutral. It will either be a place where fear rules or a place where faith governs. God has already given you the authority to choose which one leads. The removal of negative thoughts is not about force, it is about agreement. Stop agreeing with what weakens you and start agreeing with what God says about you. The moment your agreement changes, your inner world begins to realign. There are moments when negative thoughts feel overwhelming, persistent, and exhausting. In those moments, remember this: thoughts lose power when you refuse to personalize them. Say to yourself, this thought is not truth. This thought is not God. That simple separation creates space for clarity. God is not asking you to control every thought instantly, but He is calling you to refuse surrender to them. Over time, as you practice this, you will notice something remarkable. The same thoughts that once intimidated you will no longer control you. The patterns that once pulled you down will weaken. Your inner dialogue will shift from fear-driven to faith-centered. This is not because you became stronger on your own, but because you aligned your thinking with God's truth consistently. God is deeply invested in your inner freedom. He does not want you surviving under mental weight when He created you to live with clarity and purpose. The removal of negative thoughts is not about perfection, it is about direction. Every time you turn your mind toward God, even after failure, you are moving forward. What you allow in your thoughts today will determine the strength you walk in tomorrow. Choose carefully, choose intentionally, choose in alignment with God. There is a moment in every person's life when God brings them face to face with their own inner dialogue, not to shame them, but to awaken them. God is not threatened by your thoughts, but He is deeply concerned about what you allow to rule you. When negative thoughts dominate, they quietly rewrite your expectations. You stop expecting good, you stop expecting growth, you stop expecting change. And when expectation dies, effort weakens, prayer becomes passive, and vision fades. God never designed your inner world to be a place of resignation. He designed it to be a place of anticipation. Negative thoughts are often born from past wounds that were never fully surrendered to God. Pain has a memory, and when that memory is left unchecked, it speaks into the present as if it still has authority. God does not deny that pain existed, but He refuses to let it define you. The danger is not what happened to you. The danger is what you concluded about yourself because of it. God's truth corrects conclusions that pain tries to establish. Healing begins when you allow God's perspective to override your emotional interpretation. Many people unknowingly rehearse negativity as a form of self-protection. They believe that if they expect less, they will hurt less. But this is a lie that slowly imprisons the heart. God never asked you to shrink your hope to survive disappointment. He asks you to anchor your hope in Him, so disappointment does not destroy you. Guarded hope is not faith, it is fear wearing a disguise. God invites you to trust Him fully, not partially, not cautiously, not conditionally. When negative thoughts attack, they often focus on identity rather than behavior. They say, "You are not enough," instead of, "You made a mistake." God always separates who you are from what you do. Condemnation attacks identity. Correction guides behavior. If a thought tells you that you are unworthy, unchosen, or incapable, it is not aligned with God. God corrects with clarity and love, never with humiliation. Any thought that crushes your sense of worth is not a thought you should obey. There are times when negative thoughts feel spiritual because they come wrapped in guilt. They say you must suffer silently, that you deserve struggle, that joy is for others but not for you. This is not humility, it is misunderstanding God's nature. God is not glorified by your despair. He is honored when you trust Him enough to rise again. True humility is agreeing with God even when your emotions argue otherwise. True submission is aligning your mind with His truth despite internal resistance. God's truth must be spoken internally before it can be lived externally. Silence in the mind allows chaos to speak louder. You must become intentional about the language you allow within yourself. Speak truth inwardly with the same seriousness you speak prayer outwardly. When you declare trust, peace, and confidence in God, you are not pretending, you are training your mind to recognize authority. Your inner world responds to what you repeatedly affirm. Negative thoughts often distort time. They make temporary seasons feel permanent and temporary emotions feel eternal. God exists beyond time, and His perspective is always larger than the moment you are in. What feels overwhelming today may be insignificant tomorrow, but only if you refuse to let today's thoughts imprison your future. God calls you to live with long vision, not short fear. When you view your life through God's timeline, urgency replaces anxiety and patience replaces panic. Another subtle form of negativity is comparison. When you measure your journey against others, you invite discouragement. God does not duplicate lives. He designs them. Comparison distracts you from obedience and replaces it with insecurity. The question is never why God is blessing someone else, but whether you are stewarding what He has entrusted to you. Negative thoughts thrive when focus shifts from purpose to performance. God calls you to faithfulness, not imitation. There are moments when negative thoughts persist despite effort, prayer, and discipline. In those moments, endurance becomes your victory. God honors perseverance that refuses to surrender internally. Not every breakthrough is immediate, but every stand matters. Even when you feel no change, alignment is taking place. God often works beneath the surface long before visible transformation appears. The refusal to give up mentally is itself a declaration of trust in God. You must also recognize that your environment influences your thinking. What you listen to, what you watch, and what you repeatedly expose yourself to shapes your inner language. God calls you to wisdom, not withdrawal, but discernment. If something constantly feeds fear, doubt, or hopelessness, it cannot coexist with a faith-centered mind. God's peace flourishes in an environment where truth is honored and negativity is not entertained. Negative thoughts lose strength when gratitude becomes intentional. Gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what God has already done. It does not deny need, but it refuses despair. Gratitude trains the mind to recognize God's faithfulness even in incomplete seasons. When you thank God sincerely, negativity weakens because it thrives on forgetfulness. Gratitude reminds your heart that God has been present before and will be present again. Sometimes negative thoughts are fueled by exhaustion rather than belief. A tired mind is more vulnerable to distortion. God understands your humanity. Rest is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you neglect rest, you invite confusion. God restores clarity through renewal. Caring for your inner life includes recognizing when you need restoration, stillness, and space to breathe in God's presence. God's peace is not fragile, it is resilient. It can exist in chaos, pressure, and uncertainty. But it requires alignment. When your thoughts align with God's truth, peace becomes stable rather than situational. Negative thoughts may still come, but they no longer stay. They pass through without leaving damage because they find no agreement. The goal is not to eliminate every challenging thought, but to remove their authority. Authority belongs to what you agree with. God has already spoken truth. Your responsibility is to choose which voice you empower. Each time you choose God's truth over fear, you strengthen your spiritual resilience. Over time, this becomes instinct rather than effort. There will come a moment when you realize that your mind no longer reacts the way it used to. What once triggered panic now invites prayer. What once caused despair now invites trust. This is not accidental, it is the result of alignment. God honors consistency more than intensity. Daily faithfulness reshapes the inner life. God is not asking you to fight alone. He is inviting you to partner with Him in renewing your thinking. Every step toward truth matters. Every refusal to agree with negativity matters. Your inner transformation is not invisible to God. He sees the quiet battles, the silent resistance, the unseen discipline, and He strengthens those who choose Him in the secret places of the mind. Your thoughts will shape your words will shape your actions, and your actions will shape your life. This is why God begins His work from the inside. When the mind aligns, the life follows. Negative thoughts do not define you. They are intruders, not owners. God alone has ownership of your inner world. And when you yield it to Him fully, freedom begins to take root. There is a deeper layer to negative thoughts that many overlook, and God wants you to see it clearly. Negative thoughts are not merely emotional reactions, they are strategic distractions. Their purpose is to pull your attention away from God's presence and redirect it toward fear, uncertainty, and self-focus. When your attention shifts, your strength follows. God knows that what controls your focus will eventually control your direction. This is why He continually calls His people to return their attention to Him, not as an escape, but as a realignment of power. You must understand that clarity is not something you wait for. It is something you cultivate. God does not always remove confusion by changing external circumstances. Often, He removes confusion by steadying your inner world. When your thoughts are scattered, your faith feels weak. But when your thoughts are anchored, your faith becomes unshakable. Anchoring the mind in God's truth stabilizes the heart, even when the world around you is unstable. Negative thoughts often attempt to rush you. They create a sense of panic that pressures you into reacting instead of trusting. Urgency without direction leads to regret. God's guidance never rushes you into fear-based decisions. His direction brings peace even when it calls for courage. When a thought pressures you to act out of anxiety, it is not aligned with God. God leads with assurance, not intimidation. There are moments when negative thoughts sound reasonable because they align with your current emotions. But emotions are indicators, not authorities. God never placed emotions in charge of your life. They inform you, but they do not lead you. When emotions begin to dictate your thinking, they distort reality. God's truth remains steady regardless of emotional fluctuation. Learning to submit emotion to truth is a mark of spiritual maturity. You must also recognize the power of stillness. A restless mind amplifies negativity. Stillness allows God's truth to surface above the noise. Stillness is not inactivity, it is attentiveness. When you slow your thoughts before God, clarity emerges naturally. Many answers you seek are already present, but they are drowned out by mental noise. God speaks clearly in a settled mind. Negative thoughts thrive when you rehearse the same story repeatedly. The story of what went wrong, the story of who failed you, the story of what you lost. God does not erase memory, but He redeems meaning. He invites you to reinterpret your story through His faithfulness. When God becomes the center of your narrative, pain no longer defines the ending. The past becomes a reference point, not a prison. Another powerful shift happens when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is God forming within me?" Negative thoughts fixate on blame. God focuses on growth. One drains strength, the other produces resilience. When you shift the question, you shift the outcome. God uses pressure to produce depth, not despair. Negative thoughts often exaggerate isolation. They tell you that you are alone, unseen, and unsupported. This is one of their most dangerous lies. God is never distant from those who seek Him sincerely. Even when you feel nothing, He is present. Faith is not validated by feeling, it is sustained by trust. The absence of emotion does not mean the absence of God. You must train yourself to pause before agreeing with any thought. Agreement gives permission, permission gives access, and access gives influence. When you pause, you create space for discernment. God's wisdom operates in that space. A single pause can prevent a spiral of discouragement. Self-control in the mind is one of the highest forms of strength. There is also a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection leads to insight, rumination leads to stagnation. God invites reflection because it produces wisdom. Negative thoughts push rumination because it produces paralysis. If a thought keeps you stuck without producing understanding, it is not serving you. God's truth always moves you forward, even when it calls you to wait. Waiting itself is often misunderstood. Waiting is not absence of movement, it is alignment without strain. Negative thoughts make waiting feel like punishment. God sees waiting as preparation. In waiting seasons, the mind must be guarded carefully because impatience opens the door to doubt. When you wait with trust, strength is renewed quietly but powerfully. Negative thoughts also distort God's character. They portray Him as distant, withholding, or indifferent. But God's nature is consistent. He is faithful even when outcomes are delayed. Delay does not mean denial. Silence does not mean absence. Growth often occurs in unseen stages. God does not rush processes that protect your future. You will notice that as your thinking changes, your language changes. Your words become calmer, clearer, and more purposeful. This is not accidental. Speech reveals alignment. When your inner dialogue honors God's truth, your outward expression reflects confidence rather than fear. Words spoken from clarity carry authority. Words spoken from fear carry uncertainty. Negative thoughts often make you overly self-aware. God-centered thinking makes you purpose-aware. Self-awareness without purpose leads to insecurity. Purpose awareness produces stability. When you focus on what God is doing through you rather than how you are perceived, freedom increases. God did not design you to be consumed by self-analysis, but to be engaged in meaningful obedience. There is a strength that comes from surrendering control of outcomes. Negative thoughts attempt to manage the future through worry. God invites you to trust the future to Him. Control creates tension. Trust creates peace. When you release the need to control what has not happened yet, your mind becomes lighter. God carries what you were never meant to carry alone. As you grow in this discipline, you will begin to sense when a thought does not belong. It will feel out of alignment, heavy and restrictive. God's truth feels firm but freeing. Discernment sharpens with practice. Over time, you respond faster, recover quicker, and stand stronger. This is the fruit of a mind trained in truth. God's desire is not merely to calm your thoughts, but to transform your perspective. Calm without truth is temporary. Transformation produces lasting peace. When your perspective aligns with God, you interpret life differently. Challenges become opportunities for trust. Delays become invitations for patience. Opposition becomes refinement rather than discouragement. The renewal of the mind is not dramatic every day, but it is decisive over time. Small decisions accumulate into powerful change. Every time you reject fear, every time you choose trust, every time you return your focus to God, you are shaping a stronger inner life. God honors these quiet choices more than visible achievements. You were not created to live under the weight of mental turmoil. God formed you with the capacity for clarity, resilience, and peace. Negative thoughts are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. When you stand firm in truth, they lose their influence. When God becomes the authority in your thinking, freedom becomes your natural state. There is a sacred responsibility that God entrusts to every person, and that responsibility is stewardship of the mind. Just as you would never allow strangers to walk freely into your home and rearrange everything, you must not allow unchecked thoughts to move freely within you. God values order, clarity, and purpose, and when your mind reflects these qualities, your life begins to reflect them as well. Disorder in thinking eventually produces disorder in living. God restores life by restoring alignment. Negative thoughts often gain strength when you underestimate their influence. You may think a single fearful thought is harmless, but thoughts rarely come alone. One thought invites another and another until a pattern forms. Patterns create pathways, and pathways become habits. God calls you to interrupt patterns early, not when they have already shaped your behavior. Early resistance is wisdom. Delayed resistance is struggle. One of the most powerful ways to confront negative thoughts is to bring them into the presence of God immediately. Do not wrestle with them alone. When a troubling thought arises, turn your attention to God rather than inward. This shift of focus deprives negativity of isolation, which is where it thrives. God's presence brings perspective. In His presence, exaggeration loses credibility and fear loses volume. Negative thoughts also distort your perception of strength. They tell you that strength means never struggling, never doubting, never feeling weak. God defines strength differently. Strength is not the absence of challenge, it is the refusal to surrender to it. Strength is standing firm when clarity feels distant. Strength is trusting God even when confidence wavers. God honors endurance more than ease. There are moments when negative thoughts try to convince you that change is impossible because time has passed. They whisper that you are too late, too old, or too far behind. God is not limited by timelines. He is not bound by human measurements. Oh, progress. What matters to God is not how long something has been broken, but how willing you are to trust Him now. Renewal begins the moment alignment begins. Another subtle attack of negative thinking is distraction. Thoughts that scatter your focus weaken your effectiveness. God works through focus, not fragmentation. When your mind is divided, your energy is diluted. This is why God calls His people to single-hearted devotion. When your thoughts are unified around trust in God, your actions carry greater impact. Negative thoughts also attempt to define success narrowly, making you feel unsuccessful unless everything appears perfect. God defines success as faithfulness. You may be progressing internally even when nothing seems to change externally. God measures growth differently than the world does. He sees the invisible shifts, the internal victories, the quiet obedience. Do not let negative thoughts dismiss what God is developing beneath the surface. There is a discipline of returning your mind to God repeatedly throughout the day. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Each return strengthens alignment. Even when your thoughts wander, the act of returning is an act of devotion. God does not condemn wandering minds. He invites them back gently. Every return reinforces trust. Negative thoughts often intensify during transitions, when you are between what was and what will be. Transitions create uncertainty, and uncertainty invites fear. But transitions are also where God does some of His most important work. He uses them to reshape identity, refine purpose, and deepen dependence. If you allow fear to dominate during transition, you miss the formation taking place. Trust keeps you receptive. You must also recognize that negative thoughts lose power when you stop arguing with them emotionally and begin responding to them with truth. Emotional reactions fuel their intensity. Truth neutralizes them. God's truth does not need to be loud to be effective. It needs to be consistent. Quiet confidence rooted in God is stronger than loud. Fear rooted in uncertainty. There will be times when negative thoughts challenge your sense of worth. They will attempt to tie your value to productivity, approval, or outcomes. God never bases your worth on what you do. Your worth is established by His intention, not your performance. When you anchor your identity in God, external fluctuations lose their ability to destabilize you. Another important shift happens when you stop expecting your thoughts to obey you instantly. Growth is gradual. God works through process. Expecting instant mastery often leads to frustration, which feeds negativity. Instead, expect progress. Celebrate awareness. Celebrate resistance. Celebrate moments of clarity. God rejoices in movement toward truth, not perfection. Negative thoughts also try to isolate you from joy. They make joy feel irresponsible or naive. But joy rooted in God is not denial, it is defiance. It declares that circumstances do not have ultimate authority. Joy strengthens resilience. It refreshes the mind. God uses joy as a source of strength, especially in difficult seasons. As your mind renews, you will notice a greater sensitivity to God's guidance. Clarity sharpens perception. You become more discerning, more patient, more steady. Decisions become less reactive and more intentional. This is the fruit of a mind aligned with God. When confusion decreases, confidence increases. Not confidence in yourself alone, but confidence in God's leading. Negative thoughts may still appear, but they will no longer dominate. They may knock, but they will not enter. They may speak, but they will not command. Authority belongs to God, and when your mind acknowledges that authority consistently, peace becomes durable rather than fragile. God's desire is not simply to help you cope with negative thoughts, but to elevate you beyond their control. He calls you into a life of clarity, purpose, and steady trust. Each day you choose alignment, you are stepping into that life more fully. The mind that is anchored in God becomes a place of strength, not struggle. And from that place, your life begins to reflect the order, peace, and confidence that come from walking in harmony with Him. Now hear this with clarity and conviction. Freedom in the mind is not a distant promise. It is a present responsibility. God has already provided everything required for you to live above fear, above confusion, and above the weight of destructive thinking. What remains is your decision to stand in agreement with Him. Every day, your mind will ask you a question without words. Who will lead today, fear or faith, doubt or trust, confusion or clarity? Your answer is revealed by what you allow to stay. God never asked you to conquer your thoughts through force. He asked you to submit them through trust. Submission is not weakness. Submission is alignment. When your mind aligns with God, it begins to rest. And when the mind rests, strength returns. Peace is not something you chase, it is something you enter when resistance ends and trust begins. God's peace is not fragile, not temporary, not dependent on conditions. It stands firm because it is rooted in truth. You must remember that the battles you win in silence are shaping the life you will live openly. No one sees the moment you refuse a fearful thought. No one hears the quiet decision to trust God instead of surrendering to anxiety. But God sees, and those unseen victories accumulate. They form character. They produce stability. They prepare you for responsibilities you cannot yet see. There will be days when the mind feels calm and days when it feels contested. Do not be discouraged by the contrast. Consistency matters more than comfort. Each time you return your focus to God, you reinforce alignment. Each time you reject a thought that weakens you, you strengthen discernment. Each time you choose trust over fear, you deepen resilience. God works through repetition, not pressure. Do not wait for perfect conditions to guard your thoughts. Guard them now. Do not wait for confidence to appear before you trust God. Trust Him now. Confidence follows alignment, not the other way around. The mind that waits to feel ready will remain stuck. The mind that chooses obedience grows strong. God is not distant from your struggle. He is near to those who call on Him sincerely. Even now, clarity is available, peace is available, strength is available, not because everything has changed, but because God remains constant. When you fix your attention on Him, instability loses its grip. Let your inner world become a place where truth speaks louder than fear. Let your thoughts reflect trust rather than tension. Let your mind become a sanctuary where God's perspective governs every conclusion. This is not beyond your reach. This is the life God invites you to live, steady, anchored, and free. My dear friends, what you thought was exhaustion is actually recalibration. What you assumed was breakdown is divine construction. What you feared was loss is God creating space for something your current form could not carry. You were not selected at random. You were not awakened by accident. You were not separated to be abandoned. You were chosen because what is coming requires a different capacity, a different stamina, a different internal design. God is not merely changing your circumstances. God is rewiring your body, your mind, and your inner being for what is ahead. And once you understand this, you will stop fighting the process and start cooperating with the transformation. There are seasons when God does not announce Himself with noise, miracles, or visible breakthroughs. Instead, God works in silence, in isolation, in pressure, and in discomfort. Chosen ones often misinterpret these seasons because they expect elevation to feel like excitement, but true preparation often feels like dismantling. God removes what cannot go where you are going. God interrupts habits, disrupts sleep, alters appetite, shifts energy levels, and even changes how your body responds to stress. This is not punishment. This is precision. God never prepares someone halfway. When God assigns a future, God adjusts the vessel to sustain it. Many of you are wondering why your body no longer responds the way it used to. Why you cannot tolerate environments you once survived. Why noise drains you. Why crowds exhaust you. Why superficial conversations repel you. This is not weakness. This is refinement. God is heightening your sensitivity so you can discern what others miss. God is slowing you down so your spirit can lead instead of your impulses. God is recalibrating your nervous system because where you are going requires clarity under pressure, peace in chaos, and strength without strain. You were never meant to function like everyone else. That is why copying others always left you empty. That is why forcing yourself into systems not designed for you created frustration. God never designed chosen ones for mass production. God designed you for assignment. When God assigns, God adapts. When God adapts, God restructures. And when God restructures, there is discomfort because old wiring resists new flow. There are moments when you feel like your body is fighting you. Your energy fluctuates. Your emotions intensify. Your thoughts deepen. Your awareness expands. This is because God is upgrading your internal operating system. You cannot pour new responsibility into old endurance. You cannot carry divine weight with human strength. God is teaching your body how to rest deeply, recover quickly, endure longer, and respond wisely. What you once pushed through, God now tells you to release. What you once ignored, God now highlights. This is not regression. This is mastery. Understand this truth deeply. God never reveals the full weight of an assignment until the vessel can handle it. That is why you are being conditioned before you are promoted. That is why doors delay while your inner world accelerates. That is why silence surrounds you while power builds within you. God is not withholding your future. God is fortifying you for it. You are not losing passion. You are losing distractions. You are not becoming distant, you are becoming focused. You are not becoming weak, you are becoming precise. The chosen often feel misunderstood because their transformation happens internally before it manifests externally. Others judge what they cannot perceive. They see withdrawal and call it laziness. They see solitude and call it isolation. They see rest and call it stagnation. But God sees preparation. There are seasons when God removes your appetite for what once satisfied you. Food, entertainment, social approval, noise, validation, all of it begins to lose its grip. This is because God is recalibrating your pleasure centers. You are being trained to draw satisfaction from alignment, not stimulation. God is teaching you to move by conviction, not craving. When this shift happens, the body must adapt because old rewards no longer trigger the same response. This is why you feel restless yet still, hungry yet full, tired yet alert. God is tuning you to a higher frequency. Chosen ones often go through unexplained fatigue, not because they are doing too much, but because transformation consumes energy. Growth is metabolically expensive. Internal rebuilding requires resources. God allows your body to slow so it can redirect energy from performance to formation. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. Muscles of endurance you never knew you needed are forming. Emotional resilience you never trained for is developing. Mental clarity you never practiced is stabilizing. This is not visible yet, but it is real. There are moments when you feel like you are shedding layers of yourself, old identities, old ambitions, old fears, old versions that no longer fit. This shedding can feel like loss, but it is actually alignment. God never subtracts without intention. What leaves creates room. What dissolves makes space. What falls away was never meant to carry what is coming. God is not stripping you. God is lightening you so you can move faster, stand stronger, and endure longer. You must understand that chosen ones are not prepared through comfort. Comfort preserves the old structure. Pressure reshapes it. God uses pressure strategically, not to break you, but to reveal what is already within you. Pressure exposes weak connections so they can be reinforced. Pressure trains your body to remain calm when others panic. Pressure teaches your mind to stay clear when others scatter. Pressure conditions your spirit to remain anchored when everything shifts. There is a reason your tolerance for dishonesty has disappeared. There is a reason your body reacts strongly to environments that are misaligned. There is a reason your sleep patterns are changing. There is a reason your intuition feels sharper. God is integrating your mind, body, and spirit into coherence. You are being taught to listen to signals you once ignored. Your body is becoming an instrument of discernment, not just a vehicle of action. Many chosen ones mistake this season for confusion because they are not used to internal silence. God removes external noise so internal instruction can be heard. When God speaks quietly, the body must become still to listen. This stillness can feel uncomfortable because you were trained to equate movement with progress. But God equates alignment with readiness. When you are aligned, movement becomes effective instead of exhausting. You are not meant to live in survival mode. Survival burns the body out. God is transitioning you into sustainability. That requires different rhythms, different boundaries, different expectations. You can no longer force productivity. You must flow with purpose. You can no longer override rest. You must honor recovery. You can no longer chase urgency. You must follow timing. This shift feels like resistance because your old wiring was trained for urgency, not wisdom. Chosen ones often experience emotional purging. Waves of emotion that seem to come from nowhere. This is not instability. This is detoxification. Stored tension, suppressed grief, unresolved fear, all of it surfaces when God begins to heal deeply. Your body releases what your mind survived. Do not resist this. Let it pass through. What is released will not return. What is healed will no longer control you. You are being trained to carry authority without aggression, confidence without arrogance, power without chaos. This requires internal regulation. God is teaching your nervous system how to remain steady while carrying weight. This is why you are learning patience in small moments. This is why delays are training you. This is why unanswered questions are strengthening you. You are learning to trust without constant reassurance. There will be moments when you feel like you are standing still while others advance. Do not be deceived by movement without direction. God prepares chosen ones beneath the surface. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations are laid in silence. Strength is built where applause cannot reach. When your time comes, your stability will outlast their speed. You are not being punished for your sensitivity. Sensitivity is your strength. God sharpens your perception so you can lead with insight, not impulse. You feel deeply because you are designed to understand deeply. You withdraw because you are designed to observe clearly. You pause because you are designed to move accurately. This is not fragility. This is precision. There are times when your body refuses to cooperate with demands that once felt manageable. This is God enforcing boundaries you refuse to set. You cannot override your design forever. God will protect the assignment even if it means interrupting your routine. When your body says no, it is often God saying, not like this, not anymore, not at this cost. You are being prepared for visibility, but visibility without grounding destroys. God grounds you first. You are being prepared for responsibility, but responsibility without regulation overwhelms. God regulates you first. You are being prepared for influence, but influence without integrity corrupts. God purifies you first. Everything happening now is preventative, not punitive. Chosen ones are often misunderstood during preparation because their transformation does not match conventional success. You may look slower, quieter, less driven by external metrics, but internally, you are becoming unshakable. Your reactions are changing. Your priorities are shifting. Your tolerance for chaos is decreasing. Your commitment to truth is intensifying. These are signs of readiness. God is teaching you to move from effort to alignment. Effort drains. Alignment sustains. When you move in alignment, your body cooperates instead of resists. Your energy multiplies instead of depletes. Your clarity sharpens instead of scatters. This is why God is rewiring you now, so that when movement begins, it will be sustainable, powerful, and precise. You may feel like parts of you are dissolving. Old confidence, old certainty, old definitions of strength. This is because God is replacing surface confidence with rooted assurance. What you are losing was dependent on conditions. What you are gaining is anchored in truth. This kind of strength does not announce itself. It reveals itself under pressure. There is a future version of you that requires a calmer nervous system, a clearer mind, a stronger spirit, and a body that listens instead of reacts. God is shaping that version now. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are becoming. The chosen are often isolated because isolation accelerates transformation. Without constant feedback, comparison, and interference, God can work uninterrupted. This solitude is not abandonment, it is access. God draws you close so you can be reshaped without distraction. When the work is complete, connection will return with purpose. You are being trained to hear God above your fears, above your habits, above your conditioning. This requires internal quiet. This requires discipline. This requires surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that lets go of control. When you stop forcing outcomes, your body relaxes. When your body relaxes, clarity emerges. When clarity emerges, movement becomes effortless. Do not rush this season. Do not label it wrongly. Do not compare your internal process to someone else's external progress. God measures readiness differently than people do. God looks at capacity, not speed. God looks at depth, not display. God looks at alignment, not appearance. What is coming will require discernment more than strength, wisdom more than urgency, stability more than speed. That is why God is rewiring you now. Your body is learning to respond instead of react. Your mind is learning to observe instead of assume. Your spirit is learning to trust instead of control. There will come a moment when everything you endured suddenly makes sense, not intellectually, but internally. Your body will feel settled, your mind will feel clear, your spirit will feel steady. You will move without strain, you will speak without fear, you will act without hesitation. And others will wonder how you carry so much with such calm. That calm is trained, that strength is built, that clarity is earned through surrender. God does not rush this process because God protects what God prepares. You are being wired not for survival, but for stewardship. Not for chaos, but for order. Not for noise, but for authority. You were never meant to fit into systems that drain you. You were meant to create environments that heal. You were never meant to chase validation. You were meant to embody truth. You were never meant to live in urgency. You were meant to move in timing. Every sensation, every pause, every internal shift has purpose. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Nothing is accidental. God is intentional with chosen ones because the assignment is intentional. There is a sacred intelligence within you that God is awakening, and it goes far beyond emotion or instinct. It is discernment refined through surrender. God is teaching you to recognize what is not aligned before it ever touches your life. That is why certain opportunities no longer excite you, even when they look impressive. That is why praise sometimes feels hollow. God is training your inner compass to respond to truth, not appearance. This is not arrogance, it is maturity. When God entrusts greater responsibility, God sharpens perception so deception cannot take root. You are entering a phase where speed will no longer be your advantage, accuracy will. God is slowing your impulses so your decisions carry weight. A rushed chosen one is dangerous to the assignment, but a grounded chosen one becomes unstoppable. God is removing the need to prove, to rush, to impress. When urgency dies, wisdom rises. When impatience fades, authority grows. This is why delays feel longer now. They are training you to breathe under pressure, to wait without anxiety, to trust without evidence. There is also a deep internal strengthening happening that many overlook. God is fortifying your emotional core so you are no longer governed by reaction. Where you once absorbed the moods, opinions, and projections of others, you are now earning to remain steady. This is not emotional distance, it is emotional sovereignty. God is teaching you to feel without being controlled, to empathize without being drained, to care without carrying burdens that were never yours. This emotional discipline is part of the rewiring. You cannot lead, guide, or influence while being internally unstable. You may notice that confrontation feels different now. You are no longer drawn to explain yourself endlessly or defend your intentions. Silence has become a language. Restraint has become power. God is teaching you that authority does not argue, it stands. Truth does not shout, it remains. When you are aligned, you do not need to convince. Your presence communicates what words cannot. This shift often confuses people who were used to accessing you emotionally. But access is earned in the next season, not assumed. God is also retraining how you experience time. You may feel moments stretch and others pass quickly. This is because God is pulling you out of urgency and into awareness. When you are present, time becomes a tool instead of a threat. God wants you to move with intention, not pressure. This is preparation for stewardship. Those who cannot manage their inner pace cannot manage greater influence. God slows you internally so you can move precisely externally. Another angle of this transformation is the breaking of false strength. God is dismantling the identity that survived through self-reliance alone. That version of you was necessary for survival, but it cannot carry the next assignment. Self-reliance creates exhaustion. God-dependence creates sustainability. This shift can feel like vulnerability because you are no longer armored by control. But what feels like weakness is actually trust being built into your system. Your body is learning that it does not need to stay in constant defense mode. You are also becoming less reactive to fear-based narratives. What once triggered anxiety now registers as information without panic. This is not desensitization, it is mastery. God is teaching you to see clearly without being shaken. Fear loses power when the nervous system is regulated. This is part of the rewiring. Your body is learning that not every signal is a threat. This calm awareness allows you to respond wisely instead of impulsively. There will be moments when you grieve the old version of yourself, not because it was wrong, but because it carried you through hardship. Honor that version, but do not cling to it. God honors growth. The strength that once came from endurance is being replaced by strength that comes from alignment. You are no longer meant to survive storms constantly. You are meant to navigate with clarity. God is also purifying your motivations. Desires that were fueled by comparison are dissolving. Goals driven by external validation are losing appeal. What remains is purpose that feels quiet but unshakable. This kind of purpose does not rush. It waits for alignment. It does not compete, it completes. When God rewires motivation, ambition becomes stewardship and drive becomes devotion. You may feel an increased need for solitude, not because you dislike people, but because you are integrating. Integration requires space. God is weaving together wisdom, experience, restraint, and vision into coherence. This inner coherence is rare and it cannot be rushed. When integration is complete, you will notice that decisions feel simpler, confusion fades, direction clarifies, not because life becomes easier, but because you become clearer. God is also strengthening your ability to carry silence. Silence is not emptiness, it is depth. Those who fear silence often fear themselves. But chosen ones learn to dwell in silence because that is where guidance becomes see. Lear. God does not compete with noise. When you are comfortable in stillness, you can hear what others miss. This is part of the preparation for leadership without ego. There is a reason your tolerance for chaos is diminishing. Chaos drains what God is building. God is training you to create order wherever you go, not through control, but through presence. Regulated people regulate environments. Grounded people stabilize rooms. You will notice that others feel calmer around you without knowing why. This is not coincidence. This is evidence of internal alignment. You are also being taught to respect limits. Limits are not weakness, they are wisdom. God sets limits to protect longevity. Burnout is not sacrifice, it is imbalance. God wants you whole, not depleted. This is why your body now resists overextension. This is divine correction, not inconvenience. As this rewiring continues, you will find that your intuition becomes less emotional and more precise. You will know without needing explanation. You will sense without needing proof. This is not mysticism, it is clarity refined through surrender. God sharpens inner awareness when the outer noise quiets. Do not fear the unknown ahead. What is coming will meet you prepared. God never reveals a future without first preparing the vessel. The discomfort you feel now is temporary, but the stability being built is lasting. When movement begins, it will feel natural, not forced. When doors open, you will not rush through them. You will walk with assurance. Remain attentive, remain humble, remain aligned. The work happening within you is sacred. God is not finished, but God is precise. Every pause, every shift, every internal adjustment is shaping you for a level of responsibility that requires wholeness, not haste. There is also a recalibration happening in how you relate to struggle itself. God is teaching you that's true. Gale is not always an enemy. Sometimes it is an instructor. You are learning to read resistance as information, not intimidation. When something drains you now, it is not a challenge to conquer, but a signal to realign. When something brings quiet strength, it is confirmation, not coincidence. God is sharpening your ability to interpret life correctly, so you stop wasting energy on battles that were never assigned to you. You are being trained to trust internal confirmation over external consensus. In earlier seasons, agreement made you feel safe. Now, alignment makes you feel steady. God is teaching you to move without applause, to stand without reinforcement, to remain rooted when no one understands what you are doing. This is essential, because what you are being prepared for will not be validated in advance. God does not reveal outcomes to crowds before they are fulfilled. God reveals direction to the chosen and teaches them to walk by trust, not approval. There is a purification happening in how you communicate. Words feel heavier now. You no longer speak carelessly or promise easily. God is teaching you the weight of language, the power of restraint, the authority of timing. You are learning that not everything needs to be explained and not everyone needs access to your process. This is not secrecy, it is stewardship. God entrusts revelation to those who know when to be silent. You may also notice a shift in how your body responds to truth. When something is aligned, there is calm, even if it is challenging. When something is misaligned, there is unrest, even if it looks attractive. This is discernment embodied. God is integrating wisdom into your physical awareness so you do not live divided between knowing and doing. When mind, body, and spirit agree, movement becomes powerful and sustainable. God is also healing your relationship with uncertainty. What once triggered anxiety now invites curiosity. You are learning to rest without needing all the answers. This is deep trust. Those who must control outcomes cannot carry divine assignments because control suffocates growth. God teaches chosen ones to walk forward with clarity of direction, not certainty of outcome. This kind of faith stabilizes the nervous system and frees the mind. There is a subtle but profound shift occurring in how you view authority. You no longer associate authority with dominance, noise, or force. God is revealing that true authority is calm, consistent, and grounded. It does not chase attention. It commands respect through presence. This is why God is training you to regulate your inner world. Authority flows from coherence, not chaos. You are also being separated from cycles of emotional dependency. God is teaching you to stand whole without leaning on constant reassurance. This does not make you distant, it makes you dependable. Those who cannot self-regulate cannot be trusted with influence. God is building inner stability so you can support others without collapsing yourself. At times, you may feel like you are standing at the edge of something undefined. This liminal space can feel uncomfortable because it offers no familiar markers. But this is where transformation completes. Old identities have dissolved and new ones have not yet fully formed. God uses these spaces to finalize alignment. Do not rush to label yourself. Let God finish the work. You are also being trained to recognize that rest is not inactivity, it is strategy. God rested creation not because of fatigue, but because completion requires pause. When you honor rest, you signal trust. When you ignore rest, you signal fear. God is teaching you to rest as an act of faith, not as a reward for exhaustion. Your sense of purpose is also becoming less dramatic and more grounded. Go is stripping away fantasies and replacing them with responsibility. Purpose is no longer about impact alone, it is about integrity. God cares less about how loud your influence is and more about how clean it is. This is why inner refinement precedes outward expansion. There will be moments when others try to pull you back into old dynamics. Old urgency, old expectations, old roles. You may feel pressure to explain why you no longer move the same way. Resist the urge to justify. Growth does not ask permission. Alignment does not need defense. God will validate what God has initiated. You are also learning to respect the pace God sets for you. Comparison is losing its grip because it no longer makes sense. God did not design your timeline to match anyone else's. When you stop measuring yourself against others, your body relaxes. When the body relaxes, intuition sharpens. When intuition sharpens, decisions become cleaner. God is training you to recognize that not every open door is an assignment. Opportunity without alignment is distraction. God is teaching you to ask deeper questions. Does this strengthen me or drain me? Does this clarify or confuse me? Does this align with who I am becoming or who I used to be? These questions protect the future God is preparing. You may feel moments of profound gratitude for things that once went unnoticed. Quiet mornings, deep breaths, simple clarity. This is not sentimentality, it is presence. God is anchoring you in the now because power is always accessed in the present. Anxiety lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. Authority lives in the now. As this season continues, you will notice that your reactions are slower, but your responses are stronger. You are no longer easily provoked, but when you move, it is with conviction. This is maturity. God does not rush the mature because maturity sustains impact. Do not underestimate the work happening in unseen places. The rewiring within you is preparing you to carry clarity into confusion, peace into pressure, and order into disorder. God is not shaping you to escape difficulty, but to transform environments through steadiness. There is a deeper courage being formed within you, one that does not announce itself or seek recognition. God is teaching you to stand firm without spectacle, to endure without bitterness, to advance without hostility. This courage is quiet, but it is unbreakable. It does not rise from adrenaline or emotion. It rises from trust refined through surrender. When fear attempts to reassert itself, this courage does not argue. It remains steady. God is building something in you that cannot be shaken by uncertainty or opposition. You are also being trained to recognize that not every challenge is meant to be confronted head-on. Some are meant to be outgrown. God is sharpening your wisdom to know when to engage and when to disengage. Withdrawal is not defeat when it preserves alignment. Silence is not weakness when it protects clarity. God is teaching you strategic restraint because the future you are stepping into will require discernment more than force. There is an internal reordering of values taking place. What once felt urgent no longer commands you. What once felt essential is now optional. God is simplifying your inner world so you can move with focus. Complexity drains power. Clarity concentrates it. This is why distractions are losing their appeal. God is narrowing your attention so your impact can deepen. You may notice that your tolerance for superficial connection is fading. Conversations without substance exhaust you. Interactions without integrity unsettle you. This is not pride, it is alignment. God is attuning your spirit to depth because surface-level engagement cannot sustain what you are being prepared to carry. You are being trained to value quality over quantity, truth over noise, meaning over momentum. God is also transforming how you process disappointment. What once would have discouraged you now instructs you. You no longer internalize delay as rejection. You interpret it as redirection. This shift protects your spirit from unnecessary wounds. When disappointment loses its sting, resilience takes its place. God is teaching you that outcomes do not define worth. Alignment does. There is a strengthening of patience happening that goes beyond waiting. This patience is active. It observes, it prepares, it remains alert. God is teaching you to wait without stagnation and move without anxiety. This balance is rare and it is powerful. Those who master it can act decisively when the moment arrives because they are not scattered internally. You are also learning to release the need to be understood. God is freeing you from the burden of explanation. When your identity is rooted in God, misunderstanding loses its power. You no longer shrink to be accepted or expand to be admired. You remain. This steadiness is a form of authority. It communicates security without words. God is recalibrating how you experience success. Success is no longer measured by visibility, but by alignment. You are learning that a quiet step in the right direction carries more power than loud movement in the wrong one. This internal shift protects you from chasing illusions. God is anchoring you in truth so you are not swayed by appearances. There is also a restoration of inner trust happening. You are beginning to trust your discernment again, not because you are infallible, but because you are attentive. God is teaching you to listen before acting, to sense before deciding. This attentiveness sharpens intuition and prevents unnecessary struggle. When you move with awareness, resistance increases. You may feel a growing intolerance for self-betrayal. You can no longer ignore what you know is misaligned. This is not rigidity, it is integrity awakening. God is strengthening your commitment to truth even when it is inconvenient. Integrity stabilizes the soul. Without it, power corrupts. With it, power serves. God is also teaching you to honor transitions. Transitions are uncomfortable because they require letting go before receiving. But this in-between space is sacred. It is where old patterns lose authority and new ones take root. God uses transitions to finalize inner shifts. Do not rush to define the next chapter before the current transformation completes. You are learning to recognize that peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of alignment. Even in uncertainty, there is calm. Even in effort, there is steadiness. This peace is not emotional, it is foundational. God establishes it so you can operate without internal conflict. There is a deepening humility forming within you, not the kind that diminishes self-worth, but the kind that removes ego. God is teaching you that humility expands capacity. When ego shrinks, wisdom grows. When self-importance fades, clarity sharpens. This humility allows you to learn continuously, adapt quickly, and lead without oppression. You are also being prepared to hold complexity without confusion. God is expanding your mental and spiritual capacity so you can see multiple layers without becoming overwhelmed. This ability allows you to navigate situations others oversimplify or avoid. God entrusts complexity to those who can remain grounded within it. As this rewiring continues, you will notice that your faith is no longer dependent on outcomes. It is rooted in alignment. Whether things unfold quickly or slowly, your trust remains. This stability is rare and it is powerful. God builds it carefully because it sustains influence over time. Remain attentive to what strengthens you. Remain honest about what drains you. Remain anchored in the truth that God is intentional with every detail of this process. You are not being reshaped for survival, but for stewardship. What is forming within you will soon require expression. And when that moment comes, you will not strain to rise. You will simply step forward, fully prepared, fully aligned, and fully grounded in God.